I'm Joshua, and I'm an INTP. And first and foremost, I would like to say thank you for viewing this video. This will be a continuation on my 16 type series, and this video will be on INTJs. So, at the preface of this video, I would like to say that in these videos, I am basically describing the motivational patterns and general schematization of a type's mode of existence, and I am not trying to come up with behavioral metrics or anything that somebody is going to say is specific to them per se, but the general patterns and characteristics of how I think of the types as archetypal expressions of human existence. And without further ado, this is on INTJs. And it's to say this, that INTJs, the meta aspect to them and the meta motivation for them is the derivation and the creation of the good life. And the INTJ essentially asks themselves, by way of their cognitive processes and their ordering, what is the good life? What do I know, and what's going to happen, and how does that relate to my attainment of the good life? And it's to say that INTJs, though they are rational, they are rationals, and they're highly intellectually based as types, or they can be highly intellectually based, they are more so engineers, humanists, existential psychologists, and ethical agents. They have a very real ethical bent to them, as their primary mode of concern in being is to act in the environment and is to act on the environment. And this comes by way of their extroverted thinking, but is substantiated by their inferior extroverted sensing as a need to be, and to be in the world, and to be concerned with the world. Per se is that they have a very real bent to engineer the environment towards their aims of achieving the good life. And I say with the definite article the, because what is the good life will change from INTJ to INTJ and from person to person. But very really, from the standpoint of engineers, philosophers, INTJs that you can find in the past, they have had a very real seat of ethics and being concerned with man's existence, his bearing of the burden of existence, and what he should rationally do, or what is necessary given his condition and his existence, or her existence. Not I use his out of habit because I read so much philosophy and that's how philosophers talk, but mankind in his or her disposition. And that is at the core of what an INTJ is and what they're concerned with, and why they are imaginative, why they are emotionally and motivationally driven, more so than what is commonly talked about or popularly known. It's the INTJs dominant leaning in their introverted intuition to be concerned with the greater metaphysical and symbolic aspects and representations of things. They are essentially looking at in the world the ideological frameworks, the modes and patterns of being, the very real abstract elements that are at the heart of our societies, our patterns of thinking, our existence even, and is why they can be such strong existential psychologists insofar as that they can create very deep and penetrating diagnoses for people's motivations, actions, and behaviors, and why they can very much really look at the future in some regards, because they are going off of metrics and data and facts by way of extroverted thinking. But it is not necessarily always the metrics of data and fact that drive the INTJ, though that they are very wholly concerned with them. There's a very real ability, not completely as strong as in an ENFP or an INFP, to know the base anthropomorphic structures of human existence and extrapolate them on a certain chain of resolution and analyses. They may not be able to commune with their own emotions necessarily when they're young, but they very much do sort of counterintuitively understand what drives people. They very much get what's behind the curtain of human thought and emotion. They can be rational agents in dissecting these things. This is why I call them existential psychologists per se in this mode of being. But they know it nonetheless, and they use that as well as the very symbolic, abstract, and ideological motifs and ideas that surround them to project a vantage point into the future, to construct some sort of contingency plan for them to reach what they consider to be the good life. And it is their chief concern with the good life that drives the INTJ. The INTJ and the ENTJ are very analogous in this way. They're very similar because their orientation is to act to achieve things. An INTJ is goal orientated, and they have a very real aim and vantage point at which they're trying to create the right arrow and bow, the necessary link to achieve and hit the mark and hit their target. They always have a target, and the good life for them, it could be broken up into a constellation of relating items and criterion, or items of action. That's where maybe some of them get planning from, but it is their metaphysical bent to think there is such a thing as the good. So I think this arises from their core insofar as extroverted thinking and introverted feeling. All introverted, the TEFI axis is concerned with the will, and the will's vitality and its affirmation, the self in a sense, and it's being brought to life or to death. And what the INTJ is very much pulling and deriving from that is that there is this ideal metric of good. They have some very a priori conception of good. Nietzsche was a relativist, but he was never relativistic about there being something that is chiefly an aim and a concern for mankind as a creature or an animal. There's something for all INTJs that rests as the apex or the driving something. Many of them are concerned with meaning, and it may be meaning for a lot of people, but they're essentially saying that meaning leads to the good life, or that being happy leads to the good life. There's some conception of the good that they're going to align themselves with in a higher sense that is going to direct all of their external drives and aims and goals. Now, what's very interesting is that because they are rationally based, people can take their actions to be ones that can be pernicious or self-centered or short-sighted or whatever, what have you. But really, the INTJ knows very clearly in their own mind what constitutes the good, and they do not need someone to tell them that because they have introverted intuition and they have introverted feeling. They can see into the mind and into the working thoughts and patterns of schema of thoughts of other individuals about what it means to be human and what should be desired and how things can be thought of per se. In a way, they have a very real way of arranging their ethical frameworks to fit thought in terms of its imaginative capacities and what could be given the base anthropomorphic structures that exist in the introverted intuition, and they can do the same thing for the moral and the ethical scope insofar as that they can see very really what leads to life and what leads to death, and they bring these things together in a very interesting harmony that creates this very real in the world agent that is being projected in the world by very invisible and non-tangible things. They are secular insofar as that they do live in the world, they act on it, they cultivate it. It's where they draw their ore from. It's where they it's not where they receive their motivation, but it is where you notice the INTJ and really see their being represented and what they're projecting to the world, how they are extant as a phenomenological being is very much out in the world, doing things to the world, acting on the world, arranging it, organizing it, all so many different things by way of their extroverted thinking and their extroverted sensing. But the core of them and their motivational patterns and schema come from very real and visible aspects that people do not come to know and to realize about the INTJ. And it's to say this about the INTJ too, is that they are sensitive. Now, don't let them ever tell you that they're not. They are sensitive. They are sensitive insofar as that they experience the world. They experience the world because they have a very inferior and retardant bent towards extroverted sensing, but it does, nonetheless, draw them out and get them out places. They can be very hermetic and reclusive, but they will always find themselves out somewhere in, if not with an appreciation for nature, climbing some sort of ladder or overcoming some sort of obstacle or challenge. They're glued and they're driven very much by every extroverted function that they have to be out in the world and to be acting on the world and to be a transformative agent per se in some capacity. Mainly their transformative agency is in the intellectual sphere, or comes in a sort of philosophical blend between the primordial existential aspects of human existence and the higher rational faculties that they possess. You see it in philosophers like Nietzsche and Sartre. They can bring together very disparate and competing worlds because they, as types, have a communion with their thoughts and their emotions, more so than, much analogous to an ENTP, more so than an ENTJ or an INTP can have. And this gives them a very interesting flavor and dynamic insofar as that they are the most passionate and ardent, and they're so very passionate and ardent as individuals. It's a quiet one. It can come off like a quiet one because they can be very passive in their appearance by way of introverted intuition and extroverted thinking, wanting to be present themselves calmly, but they have such a real sensitivity to them insofar as that there is patterns of meaning being made manifest to them that they instinctively drive themselves towards and must attain. They develop their metrics not by way of like, it's very interesting because they're objective, but they're not, they have a duality to them. They're not objective insofar as that objects appear to them first, and then they derive meaning from the object. They derive meaning first, much like an INFP, and then think of the object secondarily. They think about objects and what objects can do towards their ends and their aims, and they derive, they look at the properties of that object and think what it can do for them. They are engineers in that way, and why I call them engineers is they are not completely objective, though many people think of them as scientists. They can be amazing scientists, but their goal is ultimately to attain the good life or make that thing manifest. And their secondary concern is how that is causing the world to move and how that's affecting others. Because they very much have a live and let live attitude about themselves, but they have a very strong obligatory agency to them, to where they know that they are concerned with mankind. I don't know why per se, but it's in them to where they see themselves and they create and construct themselves and they act out in the world as an individual, but they cannot help but know we're all interconnected. And they will even look at their existence in some extreme cases as a licensing for what it means to be as an individual and what it means to do said thing, or what it means to be such thing. And what I mean is this, is that they can be idealistic. They can come up with a conception, because introverted intuition makes archetypes. It's an archetypal generating machine. So they constellate all the empirical aspects of a thing and the impressions that they receive from life, and coming up with some archetypal tool or psychological element of what the good life is, but then they do that for other things that catch their attention and their concern. For example, if an INTJ is an intellectual, they may have a list or a criterion, a set of aspects and characteristics that make up the good intellectual. They will have, and this comes by way of their introverted feeling and their introverted intuition, and drives a lot of what they're doing, because they're trying to always match the good intellectual, the good engineer, the good scientist, whatever. They, even though that there's this objective agency out in the world, there is not this objective framework that they're stemming from, because they are highly imaginative and subjective agents at the core of themselves. And it is these imaginative, these archetypal, and these subjective notions that are driving what you see in their actions in the world. It's why I think, in a very self-reflective vein, that when they do encounter people, they are concerned with the motives behind the actions, because there is always a why and a for a reason or a purpose to what they do or what they say or how they act. And the constellation of these characteristics always puts them at the seat of an aim, at the seat of a goal, at the seat of some direction. It is why they can look very driven. They are creating what it means to live, per se, in terms of good and necessity. It's what's necessary for a good life. What's necessary to achieve this? What's necessary to go here? What is necessary given the raw datum and totality of the complex chain of information that makes up reality, per se? What is it to exist? What does my existence do in this world? How should I act in a manner to get the good life? And what do I have to be as a person to attain that? Is getting the good life meaning to be a good person? Is it meaning to be a good scientist? Is it meaning to be a good dictator? Is it meaning, not to say that INTJs would be dictators, but it's to say that there's variability because they have introverted feeling per se at the core of their stack. And I don't know what that necessarily is going to do because it's idiosyncratic as a function. There's a general pattern to it, but there's a lot of ways it could go. But I know very really that most INTJs hate totalitarian systems. They don't like them per se at all. And they are also very much against the disavowal of meaning. They don't like that at all, surprisingly. So when people say Nietzsche was a nihilist, I just say that you don't understand Nietzsche. And it's to say, what I was trying to say before is that they are always in the process of being but never becoming. So they have this conception of the good life or the good this or that. The archetypal representation that they have assimilated or constructed by way of their factual bent, their impressionistic existence, their metaphysical one, and the phenomenological manifold that is introverted feeling. Those things constellate and come together for them to make these items of thought that will become items of action. Their thinking always leads to some doing. Their conceptualization always leads to some being. They will only entertain the thoughts and the items of action that bring their will and themselves manifest into the world in the way that they conceive for it to be justly so or necessarily so. The good person, just for example, they will become the good person. They never will actually exist as a good person, but they are always in this state of becoming but never quite being. It is a continual sense of striving and construction that they are under. They are intellectually robust because they are very much comparatively, they're very much going through the world and comparatively arranging it and abstracting meaning from it, while at the same time analyzing it for its objective qualities, so that they do not overplace the value structures that are at the heart of them, so that they can very much really attain the goal. And they're also trying to create some sort of greater metaphysical aspect. They are all ultimately concerned with ethics and metaphysics, and it sits at the heart of them, and they have a very real realism to them because they want to be vigilant and know and sort of have the scales removed from their eyes so that they can see, because they need to see so that they know what's going to happen so that they can act. It is always from a sense of acting or doing that the INTJ is coming from, because they are always trying to transform themselves or construct themselves into some ideal. They do not get away from it, and they are much analogous like the INFP in this manner. They don't get away from it very really, and it's not to say that every INTJ can articulate what they think per se about what the good is. But they have some good. Like, they have some good. They have some representation of what the most optimum existence is, and what the most optimum way to be and to exist is, and they're chiefly concerned with optimizing reality, themselves, and the lives of those that they care about. It's like a goat path to a superhighway for them. They very much like hacks and tricks and things of that nature, because they are striving, and they are the continual striver. They have an innate religion to them of being, of always becoming, that they are agents in this world, and they must act, per se, for anything to make itself manifest in this world, and for anything, for them to get anything that they want or they desire. It is why they are so dang intense. Like, I hate to use that word a lot, but on the inside, they are very much intense and willful as individuals, as I've said in other videos about the TEFI axes. And the INTJ is very much always going to the nether regions of what is. They are metaphysicians fundamentally in their thoughts, and they start from a metaphysical aspect and saying, given what I know, what is possible? It is the grand what if, and they are always searching this landscape, and they go to the bottom of themselves by way of introverted feeling when they are communing with it, to find out what the base constituencies of their character is. They're so hyper-realistic and so self-aware that they exist at a very real nexus point between complete fantasy, extreme visceral reality, and complete subjectivity, and unabashedly in overt objectivity. And that's the complexity of their being in which one sees. There's a complexity to all the types, and I find it so enormously interesting insofar as their representation of human existence. They are very much able to see the future in a lot of ways, and I think it's rather obvious, at least I hope it's rather obvious, considering what I explicated prior to that statement, how that they can do that. They can be Nostradamus, or they can be Nietzsche, and they can be a lot like Dostoevsky, though he was an INFJ, insofar as that introverted intuition very much knows how to get into the minds of others. It very much knows the base anthropomorphic structures of thought. So all of the introverted functions seem to be old And what I mean by old is that they are the innate a priori capacities rather than the a posteriori capacities of human cognition. That they are the our biological inheritance in a lot of ways, and the patternistic seeking qualities of human cognition, the most fundamental and innate elements of it, insofar as it likes to generalize and make fixed constellations and meta representations or ultimate representations, insofar as archetypes, is the heart of introverted intuition. So INTJs, they can get into the mind, or they can follow the track of a collection of ideas and see the necessary ends to them. Not only this, but they go out and they act on the world, so they have this inductive sort of bent to them, or this inductive logic by way of extroverted thinking, so where they basically jerk around and mess with things enough to know essentially how the things work, and they're very aware of the property of things. So they can get into the ways people are going to think. They know about basically roughly how the physical world operates, and they watch things all the time by way of their extroverted sensing, and experience the world acting on them, and are hyper vigilant insofar as watching things emerge in the world, because it's very much, they have a innate bent of me versus the world, like man versus food, or man versus nature. That's totally something that's extrovertedly sensing led, extroverted sensing in conjunction with introverted feeling led, and why INTJs do have that affinity for battle per se, not like battle and challenge and overcoming. They do overcome things, and they will overcome things, because it's them versus some external object fundamentally. And they are experiencing that, and they know, like,